Suddenly waking up, I struggled to keep my eyes open while squinting in the dim light that made it difficult for me to see the ceiling. I started to irritably blink at the sleep in my eyes before, at last, my eyesight started to adjust. My vision appeared to become less hazy as it spread outside of my eyes. The moonlight that shone into the room was more than enough for me to make out every space of the room. Darium had gone on a little trip into town and wouldn't be back until the following day, which meant I had to sleep alone. It didn't help that I kept having this spooky feeling of being watched and that I was being made to think I might just be a bit paranoid. Still, it was better to be careful than sorry. My eyes quickly scanned the room for anything eerily out of sight, letting out a breath of relief. Getting up to my feet, I made my way to the door, opening it to see a guard standing there. The guard turned to look at me with a questionable look. "Is anything the problem, Your Majesty?" "Not at all." The guard nods, facing forward while I fight back the nerves I was feeling. "I just needed to sleep this off." Closing the door, I suddenly began feeling little pinpricks on the back of my neck. A shiver runs up my spine, and I can't resist the urge to turn around and glance behind me. I shake my head and only take a few steps when I feel it again. That pinprickling sensation, followed by the sound of a footstep behind me, had me halting my step. It was so faint and utterly eerie that it made my whole body go rigid within less than a second. The hairs on the back of my neck rose, and my whole body went cold. My breathing paused and my ears strained, my heart pounding against my skull as I tried to register the noise. My eyebrows furrowed in confusion, and I turned back. "Who is there?" I called out. My heart is beating out of my chest, and I look around the room in complete terror, settling on the figure that stood in the excluded part of the room that was dark, making it hard to get a proper look at who it was, but I was able to make out the manly features. My muscles were tense, and my eyes darted to the door and back to where the man stood in the dark, calculating how much distance I needed to cover to get to the door and alert the guard present. "Who are you?" I growled out as loud as I could, trying to alert the guard at the door, my eyes never once wavering from the stranger. He lifted a finger to his lips, trying to stop me from yelling out, but I was having none of it when I had no idea who this stranger was. The figure walked away from the dark when he saw that I was about to scream out again and quickly clamped my mouth with his hand. "Let go of me." I made an incoherent voice and hit him hard on his chest. "Queen Letitia, I need you to calm down." He winced, retrieved his hand to place on his chest, and muttered a curse under his breath. "I'm not trying to hurt you, I need to tell you something." He quickly placed his hands up in defense, and my eyes widened in surprise when I got a better look at his face. "Kaylin," I called out, surprised to see him. His face looked rugged, his beard's outgrown, and dark eyes circled around his eyes, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Kaylin was looking back at me with eyes that showed anxiety and fear, which made me wonder what could make a man like him scared. "What is it? Why sneak into my room this late at night?" My voice barely a whisper, my stance still rigid as I was suspicious as to his reason for being here, having climbed through the such height of the palace wall, especially when it was this dark outside instead of meeting during the day like any other reasonable human being. Especially during the night that Darium was absent. It just didn't make sense. My eyes darted to the door, then back to the man in front of me. "Your Majesty," he calls out, running his hands through his hair as he begins to pace back and forth, before stopping to speak again. "I need to tell you something, it's about Kiva." My attention peaked at the sound of Kiva's name. "Kiva? I asked, pondering whether he knew something more that we didn't. After all, there had been a time when there was a spark between him and Kiva, and their relationship would have turned into something more had I not been poisoned by Kiva. Had Kaylin been aware of this truth? Had he figured out everything? Was that the reason he had to leave? "I'm guessing you've heard about her betrayer," I questioned. A confused look crossed his face at my word, and I could see the pain and anguish in his eyes, but it was wiped off as soon as it came. "I need to tell you the truth." "Kiva," a knock resonated from outside the door of my chamber, cutting his word off. "Your Majesty," the guard stationed at the door called out, giving a knock again on the door. I sighed at this, looking at the door for a brief moment before shifting my attention back to Kaylin. "Give me a second," I said to him as the guard kept knocking on the door. Pulling it open, I stared blankly at the guard, whose gaze wandered through my chamber like he was searching for something before bowing. "I apologize for the disturbance, Your Majesty. I thought I heard noises coming from inside, and I wanted to check if everything was all right," he asked, lifting his head up. "There is no one here but me," I say, letting out a fake yawn. "I should head back to bed." "Yes, Your Majesty." I closed the door, letting out a deep breath before turning to face Kalen, only to find the spot where he had been empty, with no sight of him in the room. The door to the balcony was pulled open, which was more than enough to let me know that he had sneaked himself out of the room. My mind was fuzzy, filled with a lot of thoughts about why Kalen had been here. What exactly was the truth that he wanted to tell me? What was it that had to do with Kiva? "I can't remember the last time I saw you with a book," Darium says, resting a part of his body at the entrance of the library with his lips lifted up to the side, and I smile, folding the page of the book I was reading before closing it. "I thought to kill 3 birds with 1 stone," I said, chuckling. "3 birds?" he asked with curiosity mixed with excitement, and I nodded. Since Arsenio and Hasoslava are napping, I thought it would be a great idea to keep myself busy by reading and staring at the garden while waiting for the arrival of Katrona. He nods, tilting his head to the side. "What are you reading?" he asked, making his way fully into the room. "I'm just doing a bit of research," I stated. "I was thinking of making a memoir." Memoir. After finding out the truth about my parents, I couldn't help but wish they had left something behind, something more than just a portrait of them. And that is what I plan on doing. I wish to keep records of my life and my ups and downs. My fear and strength. The ones who had been with me and who stood against me. Practically everything that has and will happen. I said. Most important is my greatest love and the family we've built together. I take a hold of his hand, bringing it to my lips as I place a kiss on his palm. "That seems like a nice idea," he says. I could see the pleased expression on his face as he gazed down at my excited one. "I still don't know much about it or where to start from, so I can't give you any more information about it yet. I still haven't told Darium about Kalen's visit the night before, or more like sneaking in. Either way, I was giving him a chance to come forth again. He had looked really scared and agitated, and his words about wanting to spill out the truth haunted me. What truth was he talking about? Why did he have to sneak into my chamber just to tell me? Everything just felt so hazy. "What is it?" Darium inquires, tilting his head to the side in question. I shake my head, snapping out of my thoughts as I smiled. "Nothing, just thinking of things I wish to write and wish not to." "Then I better leave you to your research," he said, attempting to leave, but I held on to him, halting his step. "It can wait." I said it with a teasing smile. "Something else has caught my attention." "Really, and what is it?" he asked, playing along. "Something appetizing," I said as he leaned on the table, his face drew near mine till we were breath away. "I'm intrigued." He says it with a smile, causing me to giggle. "Good," I said, closing the gap between us, taking his lips in mine as I softly bit on them, and he groans, kissing me back. I broke the kiss, taking a hold of his hand and pulling out of the library, towards the direction of our chamber, while he followed behind me like he was in a trance. "When you said we were going to do something appetizing, I wasn't expecting this." Darium grumbles out, and I laugh. "Isn't this appetizing?" I said, laying my head on his chest as I snuggled closer to him. "Let's just say, this wasn't what I was expecting." "What did you think it was?" I asked innocently, pretending not to know what he was talking about. He groans, not saying anything. "Or don't you want to cuddle with me?" My eyes lifted to look into his. Darium held a blank expression as he stared at me with those enticing eyes of his, and for a moment, I felt like I would drown in them. He stared at me as if he were deciding what to say before his gaze became heavier on me, and I turned my face to the side, clearing my throat to relieve the tension. Darium sighed and finally spoke in a casual tone. "Cuddling with you is amazing," he said, pecking my forehead, and I smiled at this. He nuzzled me closer with both his arms around my waist. He held me like a pillow. His face rested itself in the crook of my neck, and he kissed it gently. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand with his sudden touch. He buried his nose there, taking a long breath, and hummed in approval. This isn't a bad idea, after all. A wide grin spread across my lips, and my fingers danced around his chest in a teasing manner. It's quite relaxing to cuddle up without having to think about the affairs of the kingdom, amongst other things. Darium closed his eyes and snickered, giving a head nod. It is. He replies, his fingers caressing my waist, though not helping in keeping away any dissolute thoughts. His eyes opened, they were thick with desire, while looking at me. He leaned closer to me while whispering, "Pray tell, what was on your mind then? The butterflies you get when I am holding you in my arms?" We didn't get the chance to relish our moment anymore when we heard the sound of horses neighing from outside the palace. Darium rolled over on the bed, getting to his feet and walking over to the window, peeping through it. "It seems your sister has arrived," he informs me, and I get to my feet, tying up my dress and hair. Darium's arm wrapped around my waist, and we both walked out of the room, heading to the entrance of the palace to welcome Kaytrona. Never in a million years would I have thought a day would come when I would be happy and eager about a visit from Kaytrona, especially here in Nisha, given what had happened the last time she and the rest of my family paid a visit. A couple of Ahades guards were stationed outside and bowed when they saw Darium and me. My brows creased when the carriage door was opened, yet no one stepped out. I stood patiently waiting for Kaytrona to come to view, but no one made a move. I made an attempt to move forward when Darium's arm on my waist stopped me. I gave him a smile, letting him know it was okay and that he didn't have to be on high alert. He let go of my waist, and I carried on making my way to the carriage. But before I could get to it, a Hades guard who had his face covered in a helmet walked over to the front of the carriage. He said a few words that I couldn't quite catch with his hands stretched out. Whatever he said seemed to have worked because Kaytrona's gloved hand was placed on his as he softly helped her down the carriage, and I stared at him with curiosity, wondering who this strange guard was and how he had managed to gain her trust. "Kaytrona," I called out, and she turned her gaze away from the guard to look at me. She didn't say anything, but her eyes lit up and her lips stretched in a smile. She let go of the guard hand, racing towards me, and I smiled, catching her in a warm embrace. This was the first time we had ever hugged each other, let alone been happy to see each other. Her arms wrapped around me and mine around hers, beckoning in each other's embrace. When we pulled away, I took the time to assess her appearance and didn't see anything out of place. She looked to be getting better, which made me wonder why Devlin thought she was getting worse. I decided not to dwell on it and instead took a hold of her hand. "It's good to see you again, sister." She smiled, still not saying anything, but gave a head bob. And here I was thinking I was going to get a warm welcome myself. The guard who had helped her down spoke, his voice sounding familiar, yet I couldn't pinpoint where I heard it from. "You heard me, Letitia. Here I thought we were the best of friends," he says, taking off his helmet, and I choke out a breath. Zakkai. The one and only, love. Zakkai. I said it again, still shocked to see him. "I don't know if that is a welcoming look or what the hell are you doing here, look, because I can't tell." He says this, pointing to my wide eyes and parted lips. "Consider me shocked, since I didn't expect to see you here, but nevertheless, I'm happy." I said it with a smile. "Good, because I just traveled for 2 days and a night. I'm famished and tired and definitely can't afford to go back to Ahades," he sassed, dramatically wiping his forehead. "Are you always this extra?" I said it with a laugh. "I can't change who I am now, can I?" he teased, and I laughed. "It's good to see you again," I said, pulling him into a hug, and he made a squeaky noise before hugging me back. I took a step back with a smile still on my face as I grabbed onto Kaytrona's hand. She gazed at both Zakkai and me, her brow furrowed for a minute, and I wondered what she was thinking about. "It seems like you're not the only one pleased to see me." What?" I asked, turning my attention back to Zakkai, and he nodded his head towards my back, causing me to look behind me. Darium stood there at the entrance of the palace, his hands folded to his chest, with a big scowl on his face as he gazed directly at Zakkai and later smiled, waving at me. I struggled not to laugh, wondering how he had zero to no fear when he stepped over to my side, mumbling out a whisper.
Just so you know, it took a lot of time and words to convince your brother to let me tag along. The least you can do is make sure I still have my head when returning to Hades.
I thought you had no fear, and wanted to prove yourself to him, I taunted with a sly smile, and he sent me a playful glare before gulping. I'm a nervous wreck right now. This, you see, is me panicking. He says this, pointing to himself. With a gaze as sharp as his, I won't be surprised if it has flames shooting out of it, probably burning those that oppose him. The things you say. I laughed, shaking my head. It's the truth. He whines.
SHH, he's coming,
he whispered and yelled before putting a distance between the two of us. Darium stopped beside me, giving Kaytrona a nod, to which she responded with a hesitated nod. I could tell she was still uncomfortable with his presence. But he didn't seem to mind and instead turned his attention to Zakkai, who had an awestruck smile on his face, which almost made him look constipated, and I struggled to hold back my laughter. King Sviatoslavik. Zakkai called out in a high-pitched voice, hiccuping in between. It's good to see you again. He said it with the same smile on his face. I won't say it's a pleasure, but sure. Darium replied in a bored tone. He turned to gaze at me, wrapping his arms around my waist. It's getting dark, why don't we take this inside? I'm sure Kaytrona is tired and wishes to dine and rest. Sure, I said, taking a hold of her hand. We all made our way back into the palace. I showed Kaytrona the room she had used the last time she had been here, and Zakkai was 2 rooms after hers. I felt it was appropriate to put them together, seeing as he was able to calm her earlier and that she trusted him. I don't know what happened between them in the short time that Darium and I left Hades, but judging from what I saw, there was definitely something going on. That was a discussion for another day. Darium and I parted ways as he made his way to the study, and I decided to spend some more time with Kaytrona. I watched as she plopped herself down on the bed, fudging with her finger, and I walked over to her, taking a spot close to her. Hey, I said softly, clapping my hands against hers, and she raised her head to look at me. You don't have to be nervous. Nothing is going to happen to you here. She nodded, looking away, and I sighed, brushing my hand through her hair. Whatever bad blood we have is all in the past. Right now, I am glad you are here. I beamed. We have a lot to do and a lot of catching up to do since we didn't get the chance to bond in a long time. Her eyes lit up, and I could tell she was excited, which made me grin. But right now, why don't you have a nice, warm bath? I will have the maid arrange one for you. Then, after a warm bath, I continued to say this while still brushing my fingers on her hair. A nice dinner and a good night's sleep, then we can begin our bonding time tomorrow with Zakkai. I included the last part to see her reaction and saw the blush on her face as she fought back the smile, looking away for a brief moment before giving a nod. I will leave you to it then, I said, getting to my feet to walk out when she gripped my hand. I turned to look at her, and her lips parted without making a sound. I held onto her hand on mine, and my face lifted up in a smile. You are welcome, I said, her eyes giving away what she was feeling and thinking. Now bathe and get some rest, I said, walking out of the room, heading over to Zakkai's, and I gave a soft knock, getting no response. I knocked again and still got no response, which made me ponder where he could possibly be. I was about to make my way to my chamber when the door pulled open and Zakkai came to view, clad in nothing but a bathing robe. He had a plate of grapes, while his hair was filled with white soapy foam. Why was I even bothered? I thought to myself, staring at him amused. I can see you are fitting in perfectly well then. I giggled. Well then, good night, I said, walking away as I shook my head. Good night, he calls out before closing the door. The palace was no doubt going to be filled with a lot of drama with him around. Choosing to check on Arsenio and Hasoslava first, I went over to their nursery to find Hasoslava still fast asleep while the nanny holds onto Arsenio, trying to rock him back to sleep. Let me do it, I said, walking over to her, and she stood, gently placing Arsenio in my arms. When he saw me, his tiny lips stretched with an adorable smile, and his small hands raised up to touch my face, causing me to laugh. I raised him up, smooching kisses on his face, and he laughed, making baby noises. I took a seat on the cradle beside Hasoslava's crib and began feeding Arsenio while softly rocking the chair.